Right, welcome back to the Foundational Life Coaches Coffee Club podcast. This is the second episode we had. Obviously, last time we had Jamie Wright, Wayne Walls, and Ian Ditter in, who just sort of done a discussion around coaching in the foundation phase. So hopefully you've watched that and enjoyed it. Today we're delighted to be joined by Aaron Croft, who is currently working at Middlesbrough Football Club. He is one of the previous Foundational Light legends, so he's worked here for a long time before moving into academy football full time. Aaron, I don't know if you want to just sort of introduce yourself a little bit and sort of talk about your journey so far.
Yeah, no problem. So, hello, my name is Aaron Croft. In terms of my journey, so I'll try and keep it quite short, but yeah, started here as an apprentice in business administration, believe it or not. Then kind of just through luck, really, just working in the office where the coaches were based. We used to go across every Friday and have like a CPD, a get together with all staff. And I was just invited across to be one of the numbers, just joining in the session, really. And then obviously I think it was Graham Robinson and Jamie at the time, seeing that I had an interest in football, they kind of then offered me the opportunity to become an apprentice coach. So that's where it started. And then, yeah, just doing the schools program, working in the community. And then we were covering a shadow squad session for Sunderland Academy. And as it just happened to be that Jen McNamee was there watching the players, and he seen me coaching, kind of mentioned to Jamie that he liked how I coached. Asked me to come in on a trial basis. So I went on a trial basis as a coach at Sunderland Academy on top of my full-time job here. And then yeah, kicked off from there. After the little trial, he offered me a part-time job. That's where my academy kind of coaching started, really. Then yeah, from there, kind of applied for a full-time job in the academy, because once I'd had the taste of part-time, I was kind of like, this is where I want to be. And unfortunately enough to get offered the under-9s, 10s job at Middlesbrough. And then within a year and a half, I got offered the under-15s, 16s job at Middlesbrough. So I moved into that. And then quite recently, so probably October of last year, so coming up a year now, I've been in my new role, which is assistant head of coaching, which obviously Craig Little offered me. So yeah, that's kind of a whistle-stop tour of how I got to where I am.
But, we'll just go back to the foundation quickly, because I'm sure a lot of the listeners might know who you are, because obviously you worked here for a long time, but some of the new people who were involved with us might not sort of know who you were and where you were here. So like, do you want to just talk about some of your highlights from when you were working here, whether it was different programs you worked on or some of the people that you worked with, just to give a bit more of a background around the foundation, really?
Yeah, so I remember starting, I think my first mentor was Paul Thompson, working in Washington Millennium Centre as well, we're based. So it was quite challenging, but probably the most important part, I would say, of my coaching journey. I was a little like getting thrown in at the deep end, because there was a real mix of ability, of ages. So that was where I kind of started. And then once I finished my apprenticeship, I got offered a full-time coaching job. So I was kind of leading my own sessions in schools. I've had a number of schools that I had looked after. I've done that for quite a long time. And I think looking back now, I think it was important that it was a long time and not just a short time. Because having all those years experience, I think really helped for a number of different reasons. But yeah, so from there, got in charge of like an area. I think we had like coordinators in different areas. So we had someone who looked after Durham, Sunderland, South Tyneside. So I was kind of overseeing an area, which involved a bit more management of staff, as well as doing the sessions myself. And then yeah, I think it was a new program came up by Premier League Primary Stars. So I was it was myself and two other staff within that. So we get funding from the Premier League, and we were delivering on that. And that was my first taste of like writing bids, recording numbers, and putting bids in, and then reviewing at the end of the year and writing into the Premier League. Again, loads of experience doing that, which was fantastic, and has certainly helped me now. And I think that's kind of my last role was Premier League Primary Stars, really.
So when you were, I mean, we'll get into it a little bit in the topic, but we're going to talk about like the similarities and differences between community and academy football. But like obviously when you worked in the community, what were some of the challenges that you faced as a coach when you were sort of trying to learn your trade, if you like?
I think it was kids not always wanting to be there. That was always a tough one. So you've just got to come up and find ways and solutions to keep them engaged, really. Obviously, you've got, you're the face of the program, really, as well. So obviously, it was speaking to parents, making sure they knew what was happening. It was quite last minute, if I'm honest, in terms of like you were that busy through the day. You were then jumping into an evening session, so it was just non-stop. And I don't think the foundation will ever change. And I think that's one of the things I was really proud of. And looking back now, I think if you come into it, you've got to understand that it is pretty full on. But it's definitely rewarding at the same time, because you see, people come out programs doing really, really well. You see the kids' development, so that was massive. But yeah, there's a number of things out there, but I think the main one would be kind of keeping them engaged, because there's times where you're doing a football session, but there's kids there who don't even like football. But how do you tailor that session so it's not just football or football specific? It's can you involve something else in there that the kids like once you find out a little bit about them? But yeah, I think that was probably the toughest thing. And then obviously ability as well, I would say. So they got a real mixture of ability. You might have a group of 10. You might have somebody who's right at the top end, and somebody who finds it really tough, whether it's football or a different sport like you're delivering in a school. So yeah, it's kind of tailoring it so they're all getting something out of it. But then it's challenging for all of them at the same time, which sometimes you're getting classes of 30 kids, which in itself is another thing I would say is that sometimes the numbers and stuff that you're working with. But I'll keep going back the way, and I keep saying it. Without that, kind of wouldn't have the skill set I've probably got now in terms of if I deal with 30 kids of mixed abilities. Like working in the academy, I find so easy because they're all good ability, and it's obviously smaller numbers.
Stuff. We'll get into the topic a little bit then. Just obviously with your experiences working in community football for such a long time, but then having so much experience in academy football, thought it would be good to get on the podcast and just talk about the similarities and differences, because there'll be so many players, parents, coaches who probably tune into this and will want to sort of understand what is the same, but then what's the differences, so that they can either help develop the players to get to that level, or there might be coaches striving to get into academies and they might just be able to pick some little bits up from you that can support that journey for them. So like, I suppose first off, like, since moving into academy football full time, like what's similar in terms of your coaching or the coaching sessions you put on, things like that?
I think I've got a good example then, but I'll say what I'm going to say first. And I think the kids do football or sport mainly because it's fun, and then they love doing it. So I think you've got to keep that flame lit for them, and as soon as you put that flame out, I think you've probably lost them, or you could potentially be the purpose or the reason that they stop doing that. So I think first and foremost, yeah, you've got to keep that flame alight for them and keep it fun. I had somebody I know who came into Middlesbrough Academy who works in grassroots. And the first thing he said after the session, bearing in mind he was just watching and observing and get a little bit of support, was, I can't believe you just do stuff that we do in terms of games. And I went, why? And he went, well, I just had this kind of opinion, or just assumed that it would be all this high level, the words he used was high level sessions, that you see like first teams doing and stuff like that. And I just went, no. I said, they're not many footballers, the kids. So that's probably the main one, really. In terms of similarities, I think, for whether it's academy football, whether it's grassroots, I think it's got to be fun, it's got to be engaging, and then they've got to love it. And there was a phrase I used to always use here: you've got to leave them buzzing. And I mentioned that at Sunderland, that's something that Sunderland continue to use. And a Bedcar at the time, Foundation Phase lead, they've got to leave that session buzzing, getting in the car, telling the parents, oh, that was class. I think that's the main thing for me.
How do you do that as a coach? How do you leave them buzzing?
I think you've got to be enthusiastic as a coach. And I always say, parents, for example, they never know what if you're a certain distance away, they never know what you're coaching the kids. And you could be giving them the best advice in the world. You were giving them better info than Pep Guardiola. But unless they're enthused and engaged, then all that information's wasted, to be honest. And I know from a parent, it's obviously about the players, but from a parent's point of view, if you're standing back and, he's giving this real important detail, but he's standing there with his hands in his pockets for the full session and not really engaging and, encouraging and, having a bit of crap, really, a bit of banter with them, then as a parent, I'm probably thinking I'm not really bothered what he's coaching them. I'm more bothered about how he's interacting with them. So, yeah, I think that's how we do it, is the interaction, really, and connecting with the kids. That's something that the foundation are brilliant at. It's a tool that I still use now and I'll always use, but connection's massive. That was mentioned on the previous podcast, but I'll never get sick of saying it, and it's one of the main things that you've got to do, really. And then working the kids out, really, so that, like, what, they're all different. So what does one kid want? That another one, maybe, one might need a little arm around the shoulder. One night there's a couple of kids in the academy, for example, and there's some grassroots kids the same. My nephew, for example, some of them actually like, come on, it's got to be better a little bit. Obviously without crossing the line, but whether that, we all want the kids to do the best, and if we know how good they can be, it's probably our job as well as them enjoying it, to try and do our best to make sure they hit where they can get to. In terms of potential. So, yeah, I think as long as it's done the right way, I think that's key as well.
I think it's really interesting when we talk to some really experienced coaches like yourself. Like, we've been on the podcast for nearly 15 minutes now, and we haven't actually talked about what a coaching session looks like in terms of the practices, like what you're teaching them. It's all about the coaches' behaviours.
Yeah.
I think that can be like a really good tip for grassroots coaches, especially who maybe are new to it or listen to this to get some advice. Like, they don't have to have all these magical practices that are confusing for the kids. It's just about what's your body language like, what's your behaviour like, what's your connection like with the kids. So that's I think that's some really good advice. If we got into the coaching a little bit, then what do you do in academy coaching sessions now that you probably still do in the community sessions from a football point of view to really develop players?
Yeah. So regardless of whether it's academy or grassroots, planning. I used to plan when I was grassroots, and even I'll use the example of I had a full-time job which was here. Even going into Sunderland Academy, I managed to find it, even if it was a little 15 minutes. Obviously, I appreciate that people have got full-time jobs and they're doing it probably voluntarily, which is outstanding, by the way. And it's tough. Probably get it in there at home about like how many hours are you out the house, not recognising who your own family member is. But yeah, I think just find, even if it's a little bit of time, just to plan, just so then in your head you've got a rough idea of what you want to go after. And I think that obviously when you're working with the kids, I think that they can see that. You probably know if it's planned, as opposed to being off the cuff. And yeah, I think just prioritising the kids. I think that's the same regardless. It's not about you. It's not about how good you look or how much detail you're getting in. The detail's got to be at the right level, to a point that they're taking it in and really getting something from the session. If it goes too far the other way, where it's too much information, you've lost them. If it's not challenging enough, you've lost them. So I'll probably say that challenge point is, knowing your group and kind of making sure it's challenging but not too difficult at the same time. And again, that's something that I would do in both, whether it be grassroots or academy. And yeah, back to what I said earlier, just making sure you're keeping it engaging for them, really. And that's probably your responsibility to come up with ways in how you're going to do that, whether you change the name of a game. Our under 9s, 10s, it's not all football terms. It's still the stuff that I say we use FIFA a lot, so again, I would just say tailoring it to meet what's going to get them buzzing, really.
So, what's some of the biggest differences you've seen between academy football and community football?
Parents, I would say, is the main one. I'm not going into much detail about that, but I think because most academies have the rule of, parents' code of conduct, which I know grassroots have as well, but we're probably in a real good position that because they're not paid for the sessions and it's a league programme, it's just exciting to be invited into something like that. The parents are probably a lot more likely to listen to what we've got to say and kind of go, all right, we've got to abide by that code of conduct type of thing. So was probably a main difference, because obviously you see grassroots at times, and we've had a grassroots team in recently, and funny enough, there's a kid there who is Middlesbrough staff. I'm saying the other stuff. I'm saying, I think he was in under 9. I'm saying, what a player he is. He doesn't have to get stuck in for the team in the opposition. But then at half time or during one of the breaks, his dad's giving him a real hard time, to the point where he's asked him to come round. He's pointing at him, and then I'm kind of saying to the other lads, as an academy coach, I'm saying actually he's really good. But then something that his parents seeing is the opposite. He's not good enough, and whether that's him putting pressure on, saying this is your chance to get in the Middlesbrough Academy, I'm not sure. But yeah, I would just say that the kind of parent behaviour at times is probably a bit different. Ability, obviously, the ability is going to be a little bit different now. So we often kind of play, if we're playing grassroots teams, we'll play the age group up above, because it's good for them, and it's not going to kill their confidence, but then it's a good challenge for us as well. And there has been some teams who've played the same age who've been tough opponents as well. It's not to say that that's always the case, but yeah, obviously there's a process to it, and we're kind of, and thanks to the grassroots coaches, by the way, that they've done a great job already, and we're kind of saying, all right, we'll take the best players that we see and recruit them. And then I would just say, because they're playing, with really good players, 2-3 times a week sessions plus a game, playing against the best players in the country, I think that in itself, if you took the coaches away, would naturally develop the kids anyway. So you can kind of see, because there's a constant element of that, and probably more training sessions than what grassroots would have through experience. I think all of that hand in hand, obviously the gaps sometimes gets a bit bigger in terms of ability. So yeah, and then as a coach, that allows you to kind of push them on a bit more, challenge, just make the challenge point even higher, really. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the challenge point would be one that's a main difference. And then the last thing, really, there's other things, but in terms of the main ones, I would just kind of say personal skills. So, I think because it's obviously professional setup, they're in more often, so we have more contact time with the kids. They're looking in the eye, they're shaking hands. Analysis, we probably, whether it's right or wrong, they probably mature a little bit more quickly, I would say, because they're having to do all this, and there's, they've all got individual learning plans, and they need to know what they are from 9s up. I suppose it matures them in a way which could be potentially be a bad thing, because I think a kid's got to be a kid, if I'm being honest. But yeah, it's kind of, because it's a late environment, it is going to be a part of that, and that is something that we explain to the parents, and if they don't want to do it, it's kind of on them to say, right, we'll pull out. But it is part of that journey, and obviously, as much as I've said, kids need to be kids, I understand it. I understand, like, the elite environment and what's kind of trying to get there, basically. So Jordan Henderson, for example, he'll have done all of that, and so you can see some of them, what were soft skills at the time, really good skills now in terms of leadership, confidence, shake anyone's hand. You can meet a stranger on the street and be like, yeah, are you okay? And you speak to them confidently. And I think, yeah, because we show that and set things up to kind of bring that on in academies. Yeah, that's probably one of the differences as well.
I think that's a really important thing you've just mentioned there around, like, the personal skills. So I'm not going to use this podcast to, like, promote foundation programs, but as an organisation, we're massive on that. So whether it's going into primary school sessions, whether it's doing after school clubs, on the player development program, like, we have a real key focus with our staff to develop young people as people and not just as players. So the fact that the academy setting is trying to do that as well probably highlights how important it is, which is a real positive. So I suppose if you were going to give some advice to parents, I know you spoke quite a little bit about parents there, about some advice to parents around supporting their child on their football journey, whether it's at grassroots, county level, academy level, like, what advice would you give them just to support their kid? Because there's probably going to be some similar messages no matter what level that they play at.
Yeah. I think, and I've changed my mind about a year ago on this, and I used to always be like, nah, when I have children, they can do what they want. If they don't want to do it, no problem. Do something else, find something you enjoy. And I kind of, it was my partner, Jess, who changed my mindset. So my little lad was going to a session, and then after like 1 or 2 weeks, he was like, I don't want to go. I was like, right, no problem, no bother. But I was constantly checking. I was probably overdoing it, saying, listen, you don't have to go, you don't have to do it. But like the more he hears that, the more he's probably thinking, all right, I mean, I don't have to do anything then, I can just kind of do what I want. And then me behaving in that way with him, my part of sport wasn't just, just said, you do realise he's going to grow up to just think that he can just stop doing something whenever he wants in terms of resilience, and I think you can just give up whenever. So you're just teaching him to give up. And I sat and I thought, like, that was a real strong message that I'll never really forget. And so yeah, I'm probably in between now where I was. I think I was like, yeah, just do what you want. If you don't want to do it, no problem. Come on, like, don't worry. Whereas I'm kind of more like, if you don't want to do something, that's fine. But if you've committed to like 4 or 5 weeks of doing this session, then I think you should see it out. And then at least you can see you give it a good try, but then you can stop at the end. So I'm probably that little bit better balance now. So yeah, I would just say to parents, and I would never tell someone else how to parent, but you've got to encourage them. Like, the only thing I'll say now after a session, whether it's kids I'm coaching or my lad, is, did you enjoy it? Yeah. If he wants to ask me about, do you think I've done this? Or then I'll answer. But if he doesn't ask, I'm not going to say. And I'll probably encourage him to ask the coach if he did ask us. So yeah, I think it's tough sometimes because there's information that we give the players. For example, we want you to play on 2-touch today to a kid. The parent might be thinking, why is he just passing it all the time? He should be dribbling. Not knowing the message we've given, and it might be because we already think they're really good at dribbling, but the passing needs to get better. And if a parent's kind of not hearing that message and they start shouting, dribble, stop passing the ball, then that straight away is kind of killing that learning opportunity. So hence why we obviously have that rule in academies. It's not to kind of keep parents away and, keep us and parents separate with the kid in the middle. I think we've both got to be there side by side with the kid. But that's one reason we do that. So yeah, I would just say you've got to encourage them that, like, the more they're starting younger and younger now. And there's some coaches, rightly or wrongly, doing like passing drills up against mannequins with under 6s, under 7s. That's not my personal preference. And then listen, that's fine if anybody does do that. I'm not saying anything bad against it. That's just my own personal preference. But I just look and say my first thought, and it goes back to the conversation we had earlier, is, are they enjoying it? If they are, brilliant, no problem. But that's just one thing I would always say to a parent as well, from a parent point of view. Are they enjoying it in terms of how you're speaking to them? Are they enjoying that? Are they not? Is there a different way you can do it? Can you use it? The little thing for me, a simple one, can you use a red, amber, green? And you say to the kid after, rather than like, say, you need to be better at this, because probably most of that information after you've been on them for 2 minutes has went over the red, and all they can see is, my mum or my dad's angry. They haven't heard a word you've said. They've just said, my mum and dad's fuming here. But, if you give them it in a simple term and just say, I think you were a red today, or an amber today, or a green today, it's a colour code. They understand it. It could be, they don't need the information probably at those younger ages. It couldn't just be that. And then at least that's a way of you feedback. If you do want to give them feedback, because as a parent, you probably do. And by all means, and I'd do the same thing. I'd encourage anyone is, everyone should just want the kid to try and work hard. I think as long as they do those 2 things, listen, try your best, work hard, 3 things. I think the kids, and I'm talking 16s, the kids, like, as long as they've done those 3, might have been an off day, so what? I think as long as they've done those 3, I don't think you've got any right there. It will be a green all day for me. So, yeah, that's the biggest thing I would say, really, man.
Happy days. We're going to move on to the quickfire questions. So we call this the Fall 5. We ask every person that comes on the podcast just these 5 questions to sort of just draw on their experiences a little bit, and hopefully, again, just give some like hints and tips out to the listener. So the first one is just like, what's the best bit of advice you've received as a coach?
The kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's quite a popular one, but that one's stuck by me. So yeah.
Good stuff. What's the best bit of advice you would give to a new coach starting out their journey?
Watch coaching sessions. I think the more you watch, the more you pick up, and then you can kind of grow all that together and come up with what you want to be. But I think the more different coaches you can watch, I think you can steal all the best bits. Yeah.
When you watch those coaching sessions, what are you looking to take from them?
I think it's personal preference. I think it might be a game, an idea, an activity. It could be how someone's behaving. Oh, he's dead bubbly and enthusiastic. That looks good. Stealing that and kind of using that for yourself. Reviewing, maybe somebody just done a good review at the end. Oh, I've never thought of that. So yeah, I think there's no certain or not one specific thing I would say, look out for this. I think you as a person's got to work that out and kind of watch the session, and whatever stands out in that session for you will be important to you to take, really.
How important is a mentor to you?
I've had loads, very, very important. I think there's no chance I would be where I am without any of the mentors I've had, no chance.
Any names come to mind?
Paul Thompson, the first one I had, Jamie Wright, Craig Little, and then most important, my dad.
Do you often go to them for advice still, or do they come and offer you advice? Like, how does the mentor relationship work?
With my dad, it doesn't say a lot, but and see when he does speak, I take note because he's kind of being an adult now. He kind of I just crack on with what I'm doing, but I'll mention something from that top end, and if he doesn't say much, I'm like, yeah. But then when he does say something, he like, I know he really cares and really, is prioritising that thing I've told him. So then I'll probably go, yeah, whatever, yeah. But then I'll drive over the car, think, yeah, I probably need to do that. I don't think there's one thing in terms of mentors. I don't look back and say that one thing. I look at so with Paul for a year, with Jamie for 10 years being here, it's a build up of all those years of just seeing how they are with people, how they behave, how they respond to certain things, how they manage stuff, how they manage staff, how they manage programs, and just kind of like what I said before, just stealing their best bits and saying, you know what, I want to be like that. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's one pinpoint thing, but I just I value the whole, the whole experience I've had in terms of the amount of years I've had work with those people.
Football one, who's the best player you've coached?
The players I coach now, and I think that's important for them to know that, because it's good for their development, and I mean it when I say that. But the players I coach now, and if you ask me next year, it'll be the players I'm coaching then. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Good answer. And the last one is the best coaching purchase that you've made.
Well, we live in the northeast, so waterproof folder. Yeah, stuff. So it's all right at the minute. To be fair, people being moaning about what's getting a bit hotter now. Typically, all the kids are going back to school. But yeah, no, waterproof folder when it's winter, and I always like to have my session plan with me. So yeah, ideal that.
Good stuff. Brilliant. That's all the questions finished. Thank you for your time.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, mate.
Man, thanks for coming in.